Greetings Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Maverick News and a new era that is just breaking. We had our election coverage last night, and we said during the main portion of that program that it looked like Donald Trump had been reelected and was going back to the White House. But knowing what happened in 2020, we also said, who knows what the morning will bring. So we signed off, and I thought it would be sometime later today or maybe days from now before we had a result, an official result, even though we stated on the program that it was very clear that Trump had won the election. There was no way that Kamala Harris could catch him. He was ahead in 7 out of 11 states, still needing to finalize the results, and she was underperforming in virtually every district that she needed to overperform in, and she just did not have enough momentum to catch him. And you look at the map today, which shows which states went red and which ones went blue, and it's a sea of red all through the middle with just slivers of blue on each side, really. Now, some people are saying that's a landslide. In a way, it is. In a way, it's not quite a landslide, but I would say it's very decisive. What I mean by that is this. If you look at the popular vote, it's this is off the top of my head, but Trump had something in the range of like 51% or something, and then Kamala Harris 47 something. So in terms of in terms of popular vote, that's not a landslide. That's actually pretty close. If you looked at everything state by state by state as the election was unfolding, it was actually pretty tight in terms of like percentage between the two. But what was decisive is in state after state after state after state, Trump was always just ahead by 3 points, 5 points, 2 points, 7 points, 10 points. And in some places, there were wide spreads in support on one way or the other. In, Democrat strongholds, Harris performed as expected and dominated. But in areas where Republicans generally, and Trump specifically, performs well, he performed well. And then in other places like those swings, especially the swing states that really counted, Trump came out on top. And that is really what made the difference, is just being ahead a little bit in state after state after state after state after state. And that showed how 4 years essentially of just constant campaigning, a constant campaign following the 2020 election has paid off. And aggressive ground game with regard to voter registration, the Republicans were quite aggressive. The MAGA team was aggressive in that way, and it really, in the end, paid off. Trump acknowledged last night in his victory speech that he has now done or did something in the range of 900 plus rallies. 900 of those Trump rallies. Over 900. That is absolutely mind-blowing. That's what it took to get him back to the White House. And the Democrats, the Harris campaign, the Harris-Walz campaign, in many respects just out of touch with what voters ultimately wanted. Not all voters. It is fair to say that you still have almost half of the voting public supporting Harris and the Democrats. So it is still a nation very, very divided. And I think Republicans, conservatives, the MAGA movement would do themselves a favor by reminding themselves of that. Yes, it was a decisive victory. Yes, it in terms of electoral college votes, very decisive. But in real terms, it's still a country very, very divided on a wide range of issues. And Trump needs to keep that in mind as well, as he prepares to govern as the 47th now President of the United States of America. The nation needs to heal. Is that something that's going to happen with the Trump presidency? I don't know. I just don't know. I think it's going to be, it's difficult to know exactly what to expect with the people around him right now coming into the White House. I'm not sure exactly what to expect. It is going to be different than it was the first time around. And we've got some sound bites, some video clips lined up for you tonight to explore that conversation. And we also have reactions from world leaders. We have other top news of the day. We have a lot in store on this edition of Maverick News, so stay with me. There's a lot to unpack.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
He's a fighter. He's a survivor. President Trump, defiant, strong. He is determined to make America great again. Pay tribute to the 45th President of the United States with this collectible t-shirt from the Maverick News Memorable Moments collection. Even a would-be assassin's bullet could not stop him. Instead, he emerged with his fist in the air ready to fight for freedom. Get your Trump Fighting for Freedom t-shirt with any donation of $30 or more to Maverick News. There are two iconic artistic designs to choose from, but there is only one way to get these. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Support free speech, free media. Support Maverick News. Call 1-866-248-1490 or order online at supergeeks.tv.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
So there I was. I took the dog for a walk. And then I went home. I went back to the house. And I was going to go to sleep. But of course, I'm still monitoring what's going on. And then I saw that some media outlets, not the big guys, but some media outlets declared Trump the winner. Yes. And then Right Side Broadcasting declared him the winner. And then Fox News declared Trump the winner. And then it became clear Trump was going to speak. He was going to give a victory speech, even though Kamala Harris had decided not to speak last night, not to give a concession speech last night. And so I came back on the air because it was history in the making. And it was about, oh my goodness, it'd be after 2 a.m. So that was like 2:10 a.m. I was setting the broadcast up, getting ready for Trump to come out and speak. And by 2:25, we had the notification that he was about to take the stage. Actually, a little before 2:20, about 2:20. And by 2:27, he was giving his victory speech to a very enthusiastic standing room only crowd. And I'll just bring a little bit of that to you here tonight in case you missed it early this morning as Trump crossed over the 270 electoral college vote line. At least at that time projected, declared by some media outlets, and not all of them. It took the mainstream media quite a while to acknowledge what was going on. Here's how it happened. Here's how it went down, Trump's victory speech.
And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. And in addition to having won the battleground states of North Carolina, I love these places, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, we are now winning in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska, which would result in us carrying at least 315 electoral votes. But it's much easier doing what the networks did or whoever called it, because there was no other path. There was no other path to victory. We also have won the popular vote. That was great. Very proud of that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And, winning the popular vote was very nice, I will tell you. It's a great feeling of love. We have a great feeling of love in this very large room with unbelievable people standing by my side. These people have been incredible. They've made the journey with me, and we're going to make you very happy. We're going to make you very proud of your vote. I hope that you're going to be looking back someday and say that was one of the truly important moments of my life when I voted for this group of people beyond the president, this group of great people. America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. We have taken back control of the Senate. Wow, that's good. And the Senate races in Montana, Nevada, Texas, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, were all won by the MAGA movement. They helped so much. And in those cases, every one of them, we worked with the senators. They were tough races, and I mean, the number of victories in the Senate was absolutely incredible. And we did tele-rallies. We did tele-rallies with each one of them. And sometimes we did 2 or 3 and it was amazing to look at all of those victories. Nobody expected that, nobody. So I just wanted to thank you very much for that. And you have some great senators and some great new senators. And it also looks like we'll be keeping control of the House of Representatives. And I want to thank Mike Johnson. I think he's doing a terrific job. Terrific job. I want to also thank my beautiful wife, Melania, First Lady. Who has the #1 best-selling book in the country. Can you believe that? Oh, no, she's done a great job, works very hard to help people. So I just want to thank her. But I want to thank my whole family, my amazing children, and they are amazing children. And we all think our children are amazing. Everybody here thinks their children are amazing, but that's a good thing when you think they are. But Don, Eric, Ivanka, Tiffany, Barron, Laura, Jared, Kimberly, Michael, thank you all. What a help. What a great job. My father-in-law, Victor, is tremendous, and we miss very much Melania's mother, Amalia. We miss Amalia, don't we, huh? She would be very happy right now, standing on this stage. She'd be so proud. She was a great woman, that one. Beautiful inside and out. She was a great woman. I want to be the first to congratulate our great, now I can say, Vice President-elect of the United States, J.D. Vance. And his absolutely remarkable and beautiful wife, Usha Vance. And he is a feisty guy, isn't he? You know, I've said, go into the enemy camp, and you know the enemy camp is certain networks and A lot of people don't like to, sir, do I have to do that? He just goes, okay. Which one? CNN, MSDNC? He'll say, all right, thank you very much. He actually looks fine. He's like the only guy I've ever seen. He really looks forward to it, and then he just goes and absolutely obliterates them. Say a couple of words.
Wild. Well, Mr. President, I appreciate you allowing me to join you on this incredible journey. I thank you for the trust that you placed in me. And I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America. And under President Trump's leadership, we're never going to stop fighting for you, for your dreams, for the future of your children. And after the greatest political comeback in American history, we're going to lead the greatest economic comeback in American history under Donald Trump's leadership.
Thank you very much. He's turned out to be a good choice.
Okay, so that's the way it was at like 2:30ish a.m. and that was history in the making. I won't run the entire victory speech. We ran it all early this morning. Many of you have probably seen the whole thing by now, but I'd absolutely wanted to share what took place in the early morning hours today, November 6th. 2024. A historic day to be sure, as Trump was elected the 47th, previously the 45th, President of the United States. A once and now future president. He received a phone call, I believe, from Joe Biden today, who has invited him to the White House for a transition meeting. So that is happening. And Kamala Harris did not speak last night, but did speak today. She did give a concession speech, and it was conciliatory to a degree, but also, what's the word, should I say, defiant? Certainly making it clear that the Democrats, they're not giving up, and you wouldn't expect them to. But the message from Kamala Harris, not entirely, bright and sunshiny, but trying to put a positive spin on what, for her in this case, I would say is kind of a dark message.
There's an adage an historian once called a law of history, true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service. H.U. And may that work guide us, even in the face of setbacks, toward the extreme extraordinary promise of the United States of America. I thank you all. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. I thank you all.
So that was the way she capped off her message. Speaking at Howard University, that's her old alma mater. And of course, you know, she has ties to Canada, Montreal. So definitely Canadian angle there. Now, world leaders congratulating Trump. Long list of them. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Emmanuel Macron, President of France. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India. Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary. Giorgio Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. Anthony Albanese, Prime Minister of Australia. Karl Nehammer, Chancellor of Austria. Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. We'll get back to him in a moment. Olaf Scholz, Chancellor of Germany. Javier Milei, President of Argentina. And others. The list goes on and on. One notable exception that we'll get to in a moment. But first, let me bring you to Justin Trudeau. I just have to find his clip here for you. He did offer these words of congratulation to Donald Trump and his supporters, along with some other Canadian officials, but not all of them. Not all of them. Here's JT.
First, I want to congratulate Donald on a decisive victory last night. I look forward to working with President Trump once again to strengthen North American economic opportunities for the middle class, to grow our economies in ways that make us competitive around the world, to protect North America from the many, many challenges that exist around the world. The world is actually even more difficult and more complicated than it was 4 years ago. And I know that there's lots of work for us to do, and I'm looking forward to do it. On our side, we've been preparing for this. We're looking forward to doing this work. And we're going to make sure that this extraordinary friendship and alliance between Canada and the United States continues to be a real benefit to Canadians, but also to people around the world. What is that?
That was Justin Trudeau. But I don't think there's any love lost at all between Trudeau and Trump. None at all. Which makes me wonder what's going to happen as they renegotiate the USMCA, which replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement. It's up for renewal, and it looks like Trump is going to go after Canada, and he said that he wants an even better deal. We're going to get back to that in a moment. But first, here's Canada's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland.
I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate President Trump and his team on their historic victory. Canada looks forward to working in close partnership with our American friends and neighbors. I also want to say, I know that a lot of Canadians are anxious. A lot of Canadians have been anxious this week. A lot of Canadians were anxious throughout the night. And I want to say, with utter sincerity and conviction to Canadians, that Canada will be absolutely fine. And I'd like to take this opportunity.
What? But she's not worried at all. Yeah, she is. She is, and it's not good, man, because the relationship between her and Trudeau with Trump, like their relationship with Donald Trump, is not good. All right, so brace yourselves, folks. I think we're in for a rough ride there, and it also doesn't do the country any good when you have Jagmeet Singh of the New Democratic Party talking like this. Like he's blowing a gasket too. Here he is today reacting to Trump's victory.
I think a lot of folks woke up today and woke up really worried, really afraid, felt crushed. And I want you to know that now is a time for us to come together to defend Canadian interests. I know that the results of Trump, right now what it looks like Trump's election, is going to have serious impacts on Canadians. So we need to come together, all parties, all leaders, and put Canadian interests first. We have to protect Canadian jobs. We have to be prepared for the impacts of potential tariffs and what that would mean for our economy, for manufacturing, for jobs in Canada. We need to be very united to say, whatever our differences are when it comes to Canadian interests and Canadian jobs, we're all going to work together to defend Canada, to defend Canadian jobs, to defend Canadian interests. That's our priority. Donc, je sais que...
Yeah, so he knows what's coming. Yeah, Trump's been talking about tariffs, mostly in the context of China, but he has his eye on Canada too. And this is not good for the country when you have somebody like Justin Trudeau in power and Jagmeet Singh propping up Trudeau and the Liberal government when Trump gets reelected. And I don't think they were counting on this, certainly not after what happened in the last election. I think they counted him out. And then to see him pushing and pushing and pushing, I'm sure they probably thought he was never coming back to Washington, and certainly not coming back to Canada to renegotiate the USMCA, which is going to have a direct impact on many, 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 many of our major industries, from the auto industry to dairy to lumber to oil. And Trump is talking about drill, baby, drill, right? And maybe it could have really positive impacts on Canada if they, get the Keystone pipeline going again. That more pipelines, that could have a positive impact on Canada. But with the way the relationship is between Trump and Trudeau and Freeland, he's not gonna pull any punches. I don't think so, not at all. Now, as I talk about this, and I've been talking about it a little bit in recent days, it was the paramount concern during question period today in Parliament, where the leader of the official opposition, Pierre Poilievre, went straight to the issue of trade and Trump and took it to Trudeau straight up. Here it is. Here's the exchange.
The Buy American policies, this prime minister caved in and allowed Donald Trump to reimpose those tariffs after Mr. Harper succeeded in putting an end to the softwood lumber tariffs. This prime minister caved in again to Donald Trump and saw those tariffs reimposed. Can Canadians have a leader that will defend jobs and bring our companies back home? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, whatever from the Conservative leader. We defended supply management. We defended our aluminum and steel workers. We defended NAFTA and improved it for people on both sides of the border. But the Conservative Party and this Conservative leader, they're the ones who lowered investment in defense spending to less than 1% of GDP, and that had consequences for border security. We're the ones who are going to stand up for Canadian security. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The New York Times reported a decade ago that Canada had the richest middle class in the world, and the median incomes for Canadians were higher than in the United States. Oh, how things have changed after 9 years of liberal taxes, red tape, and attacks on our energy sector. Americans make $32,000 more than Canadians, and now a newly elected American president wants to take our jobs for Americans. We understand why Donald Trump wants to take Canadian jobs, but why does this Prime Minister want to help him?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when we successfully renegotiated NAFTA and protected Canadian jobs, protected steel workers and aluminum workers, protected our supply managed sectors and agricultural workers, protected Canadians from one coast to coast to the coast, from coast to coast to coast, the leader of the Conservative Party at the time referred to our approach as dumb, Mr. Speaker. Successfully standing up for Canadians is not dumb. But you know what is dumb, Mr. Speaker? Refusing to get your security clearance so you can actually protect members of your caucus, so you can protect Canadians, get the briefings necessary on national security.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, his approach was dumb. It was dumb to let the Americans reimpose Buy America rules that Harper had got lifted. It was dumb to let Trump impose softwood lumber tariffs that Biden has now doubled. But you know what is dumb, dumber, and dumbest of all? Imposing a 61-cent a liter carbon tax that will force our trucking companies, our factories, and our mines to head south of the border into the arms of President Trump. We know why he wants to create American jobs with the Canadian money, but why does this Prime Minister want to help him?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we stood up and protected Canadian jobs, Canadian industry, and Canadian trade. We know that the American government cares about creating prosperity in North America, and we're going to do it together. But what the American government, and particularly this president, also cares about is defense and national security. Well, the leader of the Conservative Party was sitting around the cabinet table when they dropped spending on defense to below 1%, and the Americans won't understand any more than Canadians do why the leader of the opposition refuses to take national security seriously, refuses to get his...
Colleagues, I know it's Wednesday. It's really important, though, that we have an opportunity to only recognize the person who's speaking at the time so that the Speaker can hear what's going on. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, maybe the reason why Conservatives were able to get rid of Buy America and softwood lumber tariffs is because we helped the Americans crush the Taliban and ISIS, whereas this Prime Minister couldn't even shoot down a Chinese weather balloon over northern Canada. Now he wants to impose a tariff on his own companies, a 61-cent a liter carbon tax, 300% higher than it is right now, where there's a 0% carbon tax south of the border. Why does he want to create an avalanche of Canadian businesses, jobs, and paychecks leaving for America?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we saw it once again right now. The Conservative leader constantly talking down the members of the Canadian Armed Forces, talking down and nickel and diming our veterans. They shuttered 9 veteran services offices, cut thousands of staff from people helping veterans, and made cuts to the Canadian Armed Forces that brought our spending on defense to below 1%. Mr. Speaker, he won't even commit to our timeline to get it up to 2%. And he will not get his security clearance so he can get the briefing necessary to keep all Canadians safe.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, 10 years ago, the New York Times said that Canada's middle class was the most affluent in the world and that the average income was higher in Canada than in the U.S. Today, the average Canadian worker earns $32,000 less than their American counterpart after tax, because of all the taxes and economic obstacles the Liberals have put in place. Now the Americans want to steal our jobs and bring them to the U.S. Can there not be an election so that Quebecers can choose who is going to defend their jobs? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians remember very clearly what Stephen Harper's approach was, which was to bow down to the Americans. But we stood up to protect supply management, to renegotiate NAFTA, to protect our aluminum and steel workers. We will always stand up for the Canadian worker, and we're going to invest in national security, which is the thing the Conservatives failed to do. They lowered spending to less than 1% of GDP. And at the same time, the Conservative leader keeps refusing to get his security clearance and to take national security seriously. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly.
Okay, enough of that. But as you can see, Donald Trump's election sending shockwaves around the world and straight into Canadian Parliament. A lot of concerns about what's going to happen with trade, the USMCA being renegotiated. What's it going to mean for jobs? What will it mean for the economy? Canada could be in for a real rough ride. I think Trump's going to be playing real hardball with Trudeau this time around, even harder than it was when they negotiated the USMCA. But I will say this, Trump, with the USMCA, made changes to NAFTA that actually benefited workers in Mexico, because the conditions that he insisted upon resulted in higher wages being paid to workers in Mexico. And the reason for that is he really wanted to level the playing field between workers in Mexico and in the United States, so that both workers in both countries were making wages that were a little closer, so that it wasn't as easy for companies to simply take jobs out of the United States, move them into Mexico where wages are lower. And there were provisions in the USMCA for that. So that was a very positive thing overall, I think. And he had the welfare of Mexican workers in mind, not just American workers at the time. And that was a good thing. So I think he'll go hard line with the government, but maybe not quite so much with Canadian workers. Time will tell. Time will tell. So, as I say, a lot of, before I get into congratulatory messages again, should just mention Trudeau was talking about defense spending, building up the military, how much the previous Conservative government spent on the military in Canada, and of course it has to be mentioned that tonight there's a lot of attention being focused on what Trump will do or might do with regard to the wars in Gaza and in Ukraine. So, instantly I started to see, the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine, pro-anti-Israel media machine ramp up the rhetoric against Trump, because they've seen him in speeches, meeting with Jewish leaders, saying that he will continue to support Israel. And so they're already coming out really heavy, attacking Trump, saying that he'll be just as bad or worse than what they were experiencing with Biden. What's better, what's worse, it depends on which side of the conflict you stand with. But A lot of concern there. And I think it's fairly clear that, yeah, Trump is going to continue to support Israel. I don't think you're going to see, well, you will see, I think, a change in policy. I think you'll see maybe more support for Israel from Trump than you were getting from the Biden administration, which I think straddles the fence more so than Trump will. But I don't know. Overall, you probably won't see a lot of difference. Trump, though, says he'll bring peace. How will he do that? I don't know. The other thing that we're seeing tonight is Vladimir Zelensky congratulating Trump, and he has already expressed, his hope that Trump will continue to support Ukraine in the conflict with Russia. Trump saying all through the campaign that he would end the war in Ukraine even before he gets back into the Oval Office. So even as president-elect, he says that he can end that war. But I don't know. I'm not quite so sure. Why? Well, because Vladimir Putin is the one notable exception tonight when it comes to sending a congratulatory message to Trump. He's not doing it. He's Russian officials say Vladimir Putin has no plans right now to congratulate Donald Trump on his victory overnight. And that honestly did surprise me. I didn't really expect that, but Putin does a lot of things that are kind of unexpected. He knows how to strategize. But what is it really all about? Well, I can offer some thoughts on that, but let's start with this CNN anchor who addressed that after it was announced that Putin is not going to say, "Congrats, Donald."
Donald Trump, once again elected to the White House. Leaders around the world congratulating him on his historic comeback. But there is one leader who apparently has no plans to congratulate him. Russia's Vladimir Putin, according to the Kremlin.
When asked the question about why hasn't Vladimir Putin congratulated President-elect Donald Trump, he said this: "Let's not forget that we're talking about an unfriendly country that is both directly and indirectly involved in a war against our state."
Donald Trump.
So that is, the Russian line on it. It's like the United States is an unfriendly country, so Putin isn't going to congratulate Donald Trump. But, he's congratulated previous presidents. He even congratulated Joe Biden. Yeah, when Biden was elected, he didn't hesitate to call Sleepy Joe and say, "Congrats on your victory." But he's not doing it for Trump. Now, that, to some people, is one heck of a big surprise. And I think it surprises a lot of people, too, because isn't Trump supposed to be the guy that Putin wanted to get elected? Or when I say get, I mean support. It is a little perplexing on the surface. And Putin kind of played both sides. And this is also why it surprises me that he is not going to say, "Congrats, Donald." Earlier in the middle stage of the election, he was asked, I think it was, I don't remember where he was speaking, but he came out and he said that he would actually prefer for Harris to win. And then a little while later, it was only maybe a week and a half ago, he flipped and he said that, it was maybe only a week ago, said that he wants Donald Trump to win. Because it was at the BRICS summit. And he said that he supports Donald Trump because Trump wants to end the war in Ukraine. Now, also at the BRICS summit, he actually came out and said the quiet part out loud. He indicated that the reason he wanted Trump to win, is because he's hoping that support for Ukraine will diminish or be cut from the United States, which of course leaves Russia in a position of winning the war, because Ukraine may not have the resources to continue to fight. So he says those two things, while at the same time the suggestion out there is like, oh, Russia, they're not meddling in the election, but simply by commenting on it, that is like meddling in the election one way or the other, because when somebody like Vladimir Putin speaks about the U.S. election, people take note. And that does have an influence over public opinion, even in the United States. He knows that. And yet he went both ways, I think for probably the same reason, but strange psychology in play there. And he's hoping to get a reaction from the public and maybe even politicians. So what's this all about? He's not going to congratulate Donald Trump? So yeah, I've got, a lot of thoughts on this. It shows actually disrespect. It's a real signal of disrespect. Here's Trump saying, leaders around the world will respect me. And then Putin signaling he's not going to say congrats. It is a sign of instant disrespect. Positioning himself as, above the United States, above Trump. Doesn't even have to call him to congratulate him. Even if it were true that Putin was supporting Trump in some way, directly, indirectly, covertly, whatever, or just through what he says, and it is clear, it's very clear he wanted Trump to win. But even though he wanted him to win, it's not like he was it's a complex psychological game that he's playing. Putin, pretty sophisticated. He's saying, I'm above you. By not offering congratulations, Putin is, I think, maybe signaling that he doesn't even fully recognize the legitimacy or significance of Trump's victory. So it's very strange. This could be a subtle way to express dissatisfaction with U.S. policies or the election process itself. And I think, I know that a lot of the Russian propaganda kind of being directed at the United States, it was all directed in a way to try to sow chaos and destabilize things here, especially during the election. And although, I think in this case, though, his decision to not congratulate Trump is really more like a statement on U.S.-Russia relations. And it highlights, the U.S. as being an unfriendly country involved in a war with Russia, where it was made clear today that by other Russian officials that the United States is involved in a war both indirectly and directly, and therefore Trump doesn't deserve to be congratulated. And within Russia itself, Putin's decision also, I think, reinforces his image as a strong, unwavering leader who stands firm against what Russia perceives as Western aggression, particularly in light of U.S. support for Ukraine. And it projects an image of Russia not bending to U.S. political shifts without seeing concrete actions in favor of the Russian position from Trump. So by not congratulating, Putin actually avoids any premature commitment to a positive relationship with Trump. And while making it clear he's not going to say, congrats, Donald, today, he also signaled that he's eager and ready and willing, and he wants to get to the table to engage in negotiations over Ukraine with Trump right away. But this cautious approach about the congratulatory message might be intended to prevent being seen as too eager or too desperate to improve ties, which could be used against him, both domestically and internationally, in advance of any negotiations that may and likely will take place that will involve Trump. Although it has to be said that Donald Trump does not really ultimately speak for Ukraine. Now, people will say that the United States heads NATO, blah, 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 and the United States provides all these weapons, and so the United States is controlling. But there's like this mentality that like Trump can just wave a magic wand and end the war. But it's more complicated than that. That's just the truth of the matter. Now, United States pulls, if he pulls funding and support for Ukraine, maybe even entirely, it certainly changes the picture over there. But it does not necessarily mean that the war is over. And it doesn't mean that Trump can necessarily just swoop in there and tell Zelensky, it's all over, pal. Now, you can disagree and say otherwise, but you also have these European countries, other NATO countries, other former Soviet Union, Soviet bloc countries that have an interest in what is going on over there. And I don't think you're going to see the dissolution of, or the dissolvement of support for Ukraine overnight. This is not going to be as simple as Donald Trump going over there and saying, this ends right now. Now, I'd love to see the war end and see the, the death stop. It's been beyond tragic seeing now new figures within the last week. Over 700,000 Russian soldiers now killed as a result of this war with Ukraine. Not special military operation. That's just a word game meant to put a soft touch on the whole thing. It's been a brutal, brutal war. Well over 1 million people, 1 million soldiers, military personnel killed already. And it's still ongoing. And that's on both sides, collectively. Putin might also be using the lack of congratulations as a bargaining chip. It could be part of a broader strategy, I think, to negotiate a position of perceived strength where future interactions could be conditioned on mutual respect or concessions. And if Putin believes Trump's victory might not lead to significant changes in policy towards Russia, and a lot of people out there believe that Trump won't actually have the true power, even when he's back in the White House, and that the deep state or the U.S. military-industrial complex will have ultimate control over it and policy won't change and the support for Ukraine will continue, blah, blah, blah. Well, if there's skepticism about Trump's ability to alter U.S. foreign policy significantly without congratulations, it could be a way to keep diplomatic distance until there are clear signs of real change from Putin's perspective. So I think there's a lot that you can take away from what Putin is not doing, which is not congratulating Donald Trump. It's about psychology. It's the art of the deal. And you've got two heavyweight deal makers about to sit down at a table, I think, and see what happens. Can Trump actually do it? Can he just end this war before he even gets into the White House? I suppose it's possible. Says he can do it. Maybe he can. I just think that I don't think it's going to be quite as easy as people think. Now, he's got to have a strategy mapped out already, and he does know all the players intimately. And I think he kind of embarrassed Vladimir Zelensky when he came to America and met with Trump and met with Biden ahead of the election. I think Trump kind of embarrassed him a little bit. Made him feel a little bit low and small, and made it very clear that he was there begging, essentially. And the begging continues, no question about that. And that's the position Ukraine is in. But I also know that you also have a lot of leaders from other countries, and including some leaders from within the United States who have been over in Ukraine in recent weeks getting ready to, I think the phrase that I've seen is Trump-proof Ukraine. And they were doing that in advance of last night's election, which did see Donald Trump being returned to the White House. Yeah. Wow, what a time, eh? What a time. And these wars, one of the major issues in the election. So we'll see where we're going to go. And I know that there's billions of dollars still earmarked for Ukraine, and a lot of that money, there will be a lot of money that will still flow to Ukraine from the United States prior to Donald Trump finally taking power in January. So look for that as well. This is not over with yet. And we also know that Ukraine is ramping up domestic production of weapons within Ukraine. And that's a longer-term strategy that they are obviously planning to use, especially in the wake now of this Donald Trump victory, where you've seen even J.D. Vance come out at rallies and say that, they don't really care about Ukraine at all. I think they are basically ready to just hand Ukraine over to Russia, but we will see. I guess in that respect, it's pretty easy to get to peace if you surrender, right? It's over. We surrender. Throw up the white flag. That's one way to get to peace. Is that acceptable to the people of Ukraine? Is it acceptable to other countries in Europe and other countries around Ukraine? Well, we'll have to see. Time will tell. I'll tell you this whole Trump victory, it really turns the United States upside down, doesn't it? And Steve Bannon, who was released from prison just a week before the election, went on the campaign trail sort of, although didn't have as much profile as some people thought he might have in the final days of the campaign. He was out there making speeches and saying things to support Trump. But Trump, I don't know, there's been real strain in the relationship between Bannon and Trump after Bannon ended up leaving the original Trump administration, you may recall. And for a while, Trump didn't like him. He was calling Steve Bannon sloppy Steve Bannon. You may remember that, right? There was friction there. And then Bannon got all wrapped up in this money-raising thing for the wall that Trump didn't want anything to do with. It seemed like at the time almost like something of a scam. And then Bannon into all kinds of legal trouble, and then Trump pardoned him, and that was like a get-out-of-jail-free card. And then just recently now, Bannon back in prison because he just wouldn't comply with the court orders, and he was there really putting it all on the line to protect Trump. And like the J6ers too, going to prison. Bannon went to prison for, how many months was he in jail? Anyway, just released. And then coming out with this message as Trump enjoys his victory, Steve Bannon sending this message of warning back to the Democrats and those who targeted him and Trump and others. This is turning into the potentially one heck of a fight. So when Kamala Harris was talking about, she's worried that Trump is going to go into the Oval Office with an enemies list, it's not so much just Trump. It's a bunch of Republicans, more specifically a bunch of MAGA supporters, and they are hopping mad, these MAGA folks, especially Bannon, who is fresh out of prison.
You stole the 2020 election. You've mocked and ridiculed and put people in prison and broken people's lives because you said this thing was stolen. This entire phony thing is getting swept out. Biden's getting swept out. Kamala Harris is getting swept out. MSNBC is getting swept out. The Justice Department's getting swept out. The FBI is getting swept out. You people suck, okay? And now you're going to pay the price for trying to destroy this country. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to get to the bottom of where are the 600,000 votes. You manufactured them to steal this election from President Trump in 2020. And think where this country would be if we hadn't gone through the last 4 years of your madness, okay? You don't deserve any respect, you don't deserve any empathy, and you don't deserve any pity. And if anybody gives it to you, it's Donald J. Trump, because he's got a big heart and he's a good man. A good man that you're still going to try to put in prison on the 26th of this month. This is how much you people suck, okay? You've just tried to destroy his business thing, and he came back. He came back in the greatest show of political courage, I think, in world history. Like Cincinnatus coming back from the plow. He's the American Cincinnatus. And what he has done is a profiling courage. We've had his back, but I got to tell you, he may be empathetic. He may have a kind heart. He may be a good man, but we're not, okay? And you deserve, as Natalie Winters says, not retribution, justice. But you deserve what we call rough Roman justice, and we're prepared to give it to you. So,
those is fighting words, man. He is pissed. That is the bottom line there. That guy, Bannon, he is pissed. And he's not the only one. There are a lot of them. A lot of MAGA people who are like, yeah, they're out for blood, political blood. Yeah, I just hope it doesn't get too far out of hand, if you know what I mean, because the emotions are running high. Yeah, they are indeed. And he alludes to it right there. You know, they want to still put Trump in jail. Can they do that now that he's on his way back to the White House as the 47th president? I don't know. I think they will. Some of them will stop at nothing to try to stop Trump. We are in for 4 chaotic years, because make no mistake, these Democrats, they are not going to give up. They're not going to give up. They see him as a real threat. They really do see him as a Nazi. And a lot of these folks, they want to stop him. They absolutely will do whatever it takes. Lawfare. Riots. Maybe more. I don't know. I'm actually surprised we're not seeing more activity in the streets tonight. I'm really surprised we're not seeing more. But I think what this Trump victory should really illustrate, especially for Democrats, is that the Dems, the Harris campaign, just Democrats in general, really kind of out of touch with the mood of especially working people. The Democratic Party used to be the party of the working people, right? But everything has changed so much politically in America, because the MAGA movement, not really your traditional Republican, conservative political movement, not at all. Very populist. It is a populist movement. But populism really does appeal to the working class. They took that political ground completely away. That they have. Trump has taken all of that ground pretty much away from the Democrats. Now, a lot of unions, most unions, still support the Democrats, but not the workers. Not the workers. The union elites, the union bosses, they support the Democrats. They control the purse strings, but not the workers. And this analysis here on CNN, this kind of hits it. It just hits the nail right on the head. And the Democrats would be wise to listen to this right here. This is Scott Jennings on CNN.
This is a mandate. He's won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line, and we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough.
Yeah. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
He's a fighter. He's a survivor. President Trump, defiant, strong. He is determined to make America great again. Pay tribute to the 45th President of the United States with this collectible t-shirt from the Maverick News Memorable Moments collection. Even a would-be assassin's bullet could not stop him. Instead, he emerged with his fist in the air ready to fight. For freedom. Get your Trump Fighting for Freedom t-shirt with any donation of $30 or more to Maverick News. There are two iconic artistic designs to choose from. But there is only one way to get these. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Support free speech. Free media. Support Maverick News. Call 1-866-248-1490 or order online at supergeeks.tv.
And I just offer you up this additional moment from the Kamala Harris concession speech earlier today.
Now I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power. A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny. And anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it. Now I know...
So, I think the point she's making is that this is going to be a peaceful transition of power, and that's a good thing, because some people are very worried about that. And early this morning, back to the Trump victory speech, it seemed very much like he was still in campaign mode, and he had many of his supporters around him, including Dana White and some other notable personalities. His family was there. And he also spoke a little bit about RFK Jr. But I'll just go back to some of that speech right now and just give you a little bit more, a larger taste of what it was like at about 2:30 a.m. this morning as Trump declared victory and launched into his victory speech. Here's Dana White actually at the podium.
Couldn't stop him. He keeps going forward. He doesn't quit. He's the most resilient, hard-working man I've ever met in my life. His family are incredible people. This is karma, ladies and gentlemen. He deserves this. They deserve it as a family. I want to thank some people real quick. I want to thank the Nelk boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Bussin' with the Boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan. And thank you, America. Thank you. Have a good night.
This guy, that is a piece of work. No, he's really an amazing guy. But most of all, I want to thank the millions of hardworking Americans across the nation who have always been the heart and soul of this really great movement. We've been through so much together, and today you showed up in record numbers to deliver a victory like like no other. This was something special, and we're gonna pay you back. We're gonna do the best job. We're gonna turn it around. It's got to be turned around. It's got to be turned around fast, and we're gonna turn it around. We're gonna do it in every way, with so many ways, but we're gonna do it in every way. This will forever be remembered as the day the American people regained control of their country. So I just want to say that on behalf of this great group of people, these are hard-working people. These are fantastic people, and we can add a few names like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He came in. And he's going to help make America healthy again. And now he's a great guy, and he really means it. He wants to do some things, and we're going to let him go to it. I just said, but Bobby, leave the oil to me. We have more liquid gold, oil and gas. We have more liquid gold than any country in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. We have more than Russia. Bobby, stay away from the liquid gold. Other than that, go have a good time, Bobby.
Sorry there. Had to get my live feedback up here. And it looks like he is going to let Bobby Kennedy have a good time going after big companies and maybe eliminating entire government departments. That's what we're hearing already. And going after the food industry. So brace yourself there, because that's going to, I mean, whatever your views are, it's going to be, I think if he's going to really let Robert F. Kennedy Jr., if he's going to turn him loose, it's going to be, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's going to be messy. That's what it'll be. And it's going to be like a rough ride overall. It's not going to go smoothly. There's going to be a lot of eggs broken. Let's put it that way. And here's Kennedy in this MSNBC interview, reacting to a lot of what we're talking about here tonight, the Trump victory.
You say clearing out the corruption in your terms. Would that mean clearing out the top level federal service workers that are currently at the FDA and the CDC?
In some categories, I would say.
What does that look like? Yeah.
In some categories of workers, there are entire departments, like the nutrition departments at FDA, that have to go. That are not doing their job. They're not protecting our kids. Why do we have Fruit Loops in this country that have 18 or 19 ingredients, and you go to Canada and it's got 2 or 3?
Would you eliminate any of the agencies?
To eliminate the agencies, as long as it requires congressional approval, I wouldn't be doing that. I can get the corruption out of the agencies. This is what I've been doing for 40 years. I've sued all those agencies. I have a PhD in corporate corruption, and that's what I do. And once they're not corrupt, once Americans are getting good science and are allowed to make their own choices, they're going to get a lot healthier.
You say clearing out the corruption in your terms.
Okay,
Would that
now
mean
let me just...
clearing out the top level...
I got to pull that clip down. So, I'm just saying, he's going to go in there like a wrecking ball. That's the impression I get, for better or worse. And they're going to be big battles. You are going to see the government gutted in some departments. You are going to see probably lawsuits. You're going to see big companies embattled with government over a lot of different issues. And I don't think it's going to be smooth. Not at all. You're going to see farmers, agriculture. There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of turmoil going on in the government. I'll be right back.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
So, just as a point, there is a difference in the ingredients of Fruit Loops between Canada and the United States. I'll just bring it up here to show you what it is I'm talking about. What RFK Jr. is talking about. Let me make sure I've got the right tab here. Let me just... I found it. Okay. American versus Canadian Fruit Loops. Oh no, here, this is a better one. Here it is. This is a better view. You may not be able to read that, so I will help you with it. So in Canada, the ingredients are sugar, whole grain, corn, flour, wheat flour, whole grain, oat flour, corn bran, maltodextrin, oat hull fiber, hydrogenated coconut and vegetable oil, salt, color, which the color for Fruit Loops in Canada comes from fruit and vegetable juice concentrate, anthocyanin, annatto turmeric, which is actually supposed to be an anti-inflammatory, natural flavor, vitamins, and minerals added. That's what they claim is in it anyway. I don't eat Fruit Loops. I'm afraid of them. And I've tried them when I was a kid. Never liked them. I just found them to be kind of gross. But that's just me. Some people love them. In the United States, the ingredients are... In Canada, the number one ingredient is sugar. Now, I've seen two different, slightly different ingredients lists for the U.S. version. But here it says the number one ingredient is whole grain yellow corn flour, followed by degerminated yellow corn flour, sugar, which is the third ingredient. And if they're listed first, that means there's more of it. Number one ingredient in Canada, sugar. Number three ingredient in the U.S. version, sugar. And then wheat flour, whole grain oat flour, modified food starch, hydrogenated vegetable oil, coconut, soybean, and or cottonseed, oat fiber, salt, soluble corn fiber, natural flavor. And now these are the ones that people are most concerned about. Red 40, it's a food coloring, artificial. And then they have turmeric extract, color, and blue dye number 1, yellow dye number 6, again synthetic food colorings, then annatto extract color, and BHT for freshness. That's an additive that they use to essentially keep the food tasting crisp and fresh, give it longer shelf life, and then they have vitamins and minerals added as well. Now the thing is, the alternative, the other ingredients list for the U.S. that I saw, it listed the vitamins. There's actually, I think, more iron in the U.S. version than there is in the Canadian version, and potentially more vitamins as well. Not sure, because the ingredients lists that I've seen, not always consistent, but they have like vitamin B1, B12, and a bunch of B vitamins that they add in addition to the iron. But it's those food dyes and the BHT that are of most concern to people, and clearly that's sort of what RFK Jr. is zeroing in on. Not really accurate, though, to say that Canada only has 2 or 3 ingredients in Fruit Loops. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff in Fruit Loops that I don't really think is very good for you. Number 1 in the Canadian version, sugar. Would you like, hey, Bobby, good morning. Here's your bowl of sugar for you to start your day. That's the breakfast cereal of not champions. Yeah. Anyway, something to take note of. We'll see where Bobby Kennedy Jr. is able to take all of that. But he's basically declaring war on pharmaceutical industry, the food industry, a lot of different industries. So we'll see. We will see. He also wants to regulate the living crap out of a lot of things, including food stamps. Oh yes, food stamps. He has said that he wants to prohibit people from who receive government assistance from using food stamps to buy certain kinds of food. He wants to dictate what you're allowed to buy and what you can't buy with your welfare check or with your food stamps. I think, honestly, he's maybe a little bit out of touch with poor people, okay? Because they're going to buy what they can afford. And I can tell you, too, that these policies of RFK Jr., when it comes to food and agri-industry, it will result in much, much, much higher prices for food at the supermarket if he is successful in doing what he plans to do. Because he will declare war on industrial farming, full-scale farming, corporate farming, where you get economies of scale that you just don't get from family farms. So there's a trade-off here, and I'm just saying it's going to be a real battle. For the better, for the worse, I don't know, but it's coming. Okay, we did the Fruit Loops thing. And, that's enough to get, yeah, you know what it is? It's the Fruit Loops, they melt in your mouth. Because they are pure sugar. To me, you put them, and you're just like, bleh. Okay, that's Fruit Loops to me. You put them in, and they do feel like they're gonna dissolve, just like sugar in my mouth. I could never stand them. I just don't like the taste. Maybe the American ones would be better. It's the Canadian version that I'm familiar with. But speaking of melting, a lot of people on the Democrat side having meltdowns. A lot. Case in point, Whoopi Goldberg, who you remember she would not say Donald Trump's name out loud? Yeah. Well, I guess she was back on The View today. And oops. And she is also once again refusing to say his name. So Whoopi Goldberg on sort of a Donald Trump strike on The View, where they sort of had another little meltdown this morning. Won't run you the clips. But she ain't alone. Whole bunch of Harris supporters, Democrats, losing their minds over the Trump victory. And I have a compilation of people on the left losing their minds. Breakdown, meltdown. I kind of feel sorry for people who get this emotionally involved, but here you go.
I will make it my life's mission, my dying wish, that none of you weirdos can hide in the future. You can't lie to your kids, you can't lie to your grandkids about, oh, it was so confusing, it was hard to see the truth, he was so convincing. I will not let you get away with that. Like, that was not normal. This is not normal. I will make it clear to everyone. Like, I will make sure no one is confused about how things were right now in this very vital, crucial time in American history, that it was not confusing. It was not confusing at all. You just stood for that. You stood with that and for that. Like, I can't emphasize enough, there will be nowhere to hide, and history is going to look back on this and look back on you in a very negative light. I will make
That was not exactly the clip that I was planning on running, but she's not happy, obviously. And yeah, they are losing their minds. I get it. I totally get it. If it had been the other way around, the Trump supporters, a lot of people would be upset the other way around too. I am grateful, though, that we're not seeing more unrest in the streets. That being said, we're talking about oil. We're talking about drill, baby, drill, government regulations, government departments potentially being abolished, torn apart by RFK Jr., Trump standing up there saying he's going to keep RFK Jr. away from the oil. It's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? Well, there have been protests, including this one. This was over at the U.S. Embassy in London, where climate change activists were out to throw orange paint on the U.S. Embassy as they, as a form of protest against Donald Trump and fascism, is the way that they explained themselves as police came out to greet them. And here's how that went.
So currently, you're going to be under arrest for criminal damage against the U.S. Embassy. Okay, so you do not have to say anything but may harm your defence. You do not mention when questioned something you later align in court. Anything you do say may be given an evidence. Okay, the necessity of it is to prevent you from committing further offences.
Do not mention my questions, something you later on in court. Anything you do say may be given an evidence.
Done now. Okay.
Can I sit on those things? Of course you can. Of course you can. If you want to come over another reason, I'll grab your bag and who you are.
Good job, Mike. So,
and we've been seeing a lot of that in recent years, months, and with Trump back in the White House, I think you're going to see a lot more of it. More protests, more climate activism. Pretty sure of that. This is not going to be. Trump has experience because he's been there, but they're not going to give up. It's not going to be easy. Not for Trump. It's not going to be easy for the country, simply because the country still remains very, very, very divided on this, 6th day of November, 2024. What an election. What does the future hold in store for us? I don't know. I do know that we really are still on the verge of, possible nuclear war. And this time around, it is different for Trump in many respects. Because the last time he didn't really get the United States into any new wars, so to speak. But this time around, and that's not to say that he didn't take military action from time to time, because he certainly did. Sometimes going after terrorists or leaders of terrorist organizations. But this time he's inheriting two very volatile situations. One in Gaza, one in Ukraine. And we're already in a third world war. I've said it many, many times out here on this program. And it's the strangest war probably in human history. The most sophisticated, it's fifth generation warfare, it's information warfare, and it is already underway. Trump's inheriting that, and he's part of it already. The whole MAGA machine, fueled by whatever forces it is within that are part of all of that friction, turmoil, chaos. It's all out there, and it's having profound effects on our society. It has destabilized us. Just the war itself, in ways that people don't even recognize. It's created a mania at times, and it really largely started, in my view, with the pandemic. And it's ramped up from there. It hasn't stopped. As much as we think that is all behind us, or some people think it's all behind us, it really isn't. This is just a continuation. In my mind, my view, that's really what we're experiencing here right now. And Trump's just being reinserted after 4 years, and it is still very, very weird. When I think back to what happened during his first term in power, I think, what the hell happened, right? You had the whole pandemic. It just derailed the economy that he had been building. It resulted in the very things that we, I think, who are sort of freedom-oriented, really stand against. Authoritarianism, lockdowns, mandatory masking, mandates. Poorly tested things that you get in your, over here. He gave us those things, really, and yet he gets passed. largely. Now he's going back into the White House. And there's so much weirdness. I'm just saying, this is the irony in so many things. There he is in, where was it, Springfield, Ohio, right? Talking about they're eating the cats and the dogs. Meanwhile, who's he bringing into his campaign? RFK Jr., who has talked literally about eating dog and is accused of eating a dog, with a photo that's out on the internet that we showed here of him eating, well, some people say a dog, he says it's a goat, but there are witnesses who say, and people saying that he did talk about eating dog and how, anyway, they're eating the cats and the dogs, and then the cats are supposed to be voting for Trump, and it became a whole election thing, and there's a guy who comes out to support Trump who is accused of eating a dog. Don't tell me that's not freaking weird. There's a lot of weird stuff that has happened in this campaign, like nothing I've ever seen before. And there's a long list of weird stuff. The assassination attempts, him getting shot in the ear. That's kind of weird. Yeah, it's all kind of weird. All kind of weird. Let me just take a little break here. This might be an important call. Hang on.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
I'm back. That was just a phone call. Somebody important phoning just to let me know that apparently I was frozen on screen for a while, so I don't know how long I was frozen, but hopefully the message was coming across. I was just saying, in case it was frozen, that I just think the whole Trump campaign, not just the Trump campaign, but the election in general, it's all been very, very weird. And there's a lot of weirdness still going on out there. The whole eating the cats and dogs thing, and then RFK Jr. being accused of eating a dog, and then actually joining the Trump campaign. So you've got the campaign saying that they're on the side of the dogs and the cats because they're being victimized in Springfield, Ohio, as being eaten, tying into the immigration issue, while RFK Jr. is accused of eating a dog. Is that not weird? I think that's pretty weird. There are other things too. But I don't know. I just don't know. I do know that it's just, I'm just glad to get the election behind us, and I'm glad, honestly, that this broadcast is now wrapping up, because I'll tell you, it's just been a long couple of days. It was a very late night and then early morning this morning, and I'm glad that I was able to get back in here and bring Trump's victory speech to those of you who are still awake. And we did have an audience last night watching that, and thousands of people actually ended up seeing it across the platforms through the day today, reviewing the archived version. It was a moment in history, history on the run. That's what it was. It was a piece of American history that I'm just glad we were able to share with you. And I will continue to share with you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Really appreciate you guys spending your time here again with me tonight as we continue to fight for freedom and share information that helps get us all closer to the truth. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.